Hello everyone, my name is Majid Mahichi from Skyrise Media Society and Parvaz TV. Thanks for joining us. Today I'm here with Councillor Matt Djonlic.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Matt, from the city of Coquitlam. Matt was elected in 2022 and brings a fresh, thoughtful voice in local politics, especially around youth, housing and building stronger communities. Am I right, Matt?
Well, that sounds correct. Well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk about some of the things that we're doing in the city of Coquitlam.
Thanks for joining us, Matt. Again, I know we had an interview last year, maybe 2 years
Time
ago.
flies, yes.
Yeah. So what happened after 2 years for city of Coquitlam? What was the improvement and any new plan?
Well, we've been pretty busy over these last 2 years, and I think I'll just start with housing, which is, of course, remaining the number one issue, I think, for a lot of our residents. We've been through this process of rebuilding and adopting some new provincial changes to how housing gets approved, with the idea of more density around SkyTrain stations. That was a lot of what we were doing here in Coquitlam anyways, is building more of our urban core around the
So we have more high-rises, maybe?
Well, certainly around the SkyTrain stations, right? But we're still having to work to make sure that that housing that's not just the high-rises is getting built. The townhouses, the duplexes, homes that really go towards families with kids, because that is still predominantly what we're finding in Coquitlam. We are still very much a suburban community and need to make sure that that family-oriented housing is there. And that ties back into some of the amenities that we're also building. So I'm very excited and just toward the new Mundy Park outdoor pool. That is going to be welcome, I think, by our residents, and particularly young kids.
That before.
Yeah, it took a little bit longer, unfortunately, to finish up. There was just the challenges with construction, but it's done now. It's opening in just a few weeks, and I think residents are going to have a lot of fun with that. And then we're starting construction soon on our and planning for our Burke Mountain Rec Center, which is going to be a new pool.
I remember that was your surprise for your last interview. Is there any new surprise?
Oh, new surprises. Well, we have another rec center that's going to be getting planned in the Fraser Mills area.
Oh,
so that's another one. So the Fraser Mills area, which is along the river, another new community that's being built in Coquitlam, and that too is going to have a rec center going along with it.
Good for Coquitlam residents.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, Matt, we want to change the gear to community media. As you know, we are working for like over 26 years. We had TV show for Persian community for a long time. And I want to see, how do you see your role in helping residents feel more connected to the city hall, especially those in communities that might feel underrepresented, like
yeah, and maybe just let me start with since we last talked almost a year ago, we've had some significant changes to the landscape of local media. Our community newspaper, the Tri-City News, as well as website, that's been shut down. So we've now lost our one voice, and then not that there are other voices. We have some smaller local media like yourself that's covering events in Coquitlam, but that was a big blow in terms of our ability to be able to get news out to the community, and for council and the city to be able to hear from residents, whether it be letters to the editor or local journalism that was following up on things, for us to be able to see that. So our role really needs to pivot in terms of how we can make sure that residents are getting correct information, because as we're seeing in today's world with social media, the political situation, the internet, there is so much fake news that's out there that's highly manipulated, highly politicized. So we've actually started Coquitlam Current, which is our own local news bulletin that we send out to email subscribers. And that's a one way that we're...
a printed version or online?
Not a printed version, only digital. We are still finding that there's... And I think some conversations around what could a printed version look like, but right now it is just digital. So that is a way for us to be able to get information out there. But I think also that we have to lend our voice to supporting local media outlets such as yourself. We see Tri-Cities TV as well. And now we're also seeing that these groups are facing increased pressure of grant funding cuts.
Yeah.
So it's becoming even harder for these very small local media.
Funding was
TELUS funding is gone. Well, these are groups that don't rely on advertisers or big sponsors who are running smaller operations smaller than what the Tri-City News runs, and now they're facing pressure too. So how do we support these organizations? I think this is where the federal government, provincial government will have a role, but also we as council, I think the city need to bring in local news outlets like yourself. If we're, for example, bringing forward our city budget, which residents are always interested in seeing in because there's new funding, they want to see the tax rate increases, always, of course, is an important thing. But is it a matter of bringing in local news like yourself, sharing the information ahead of time so you can actually report out on doing it?
That's nice.
And I think that's where there's such a bit of a symbiosis relationship between government and local media in a positive way, where you're in the business of sharing news, we're in the business of making news. Exactly. So how do we work together? How do we coordinate so we can get you the message? Because I know you want content to be able to report out on, and we want you to report our content out on. So I think redefining that relationship and getting local outlets such as yourself more involved with city operations is something that, and reporting is something we're going to have to seriously look at, because the days of just relying on the local newspaper to show up and cover news, it's over.
Yeah, but of course, we can help each other, to do something more.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think interviews like this are exactly that, where it's getting news out, and it provides people like myself an opportunity to be able to get information out to residents.
From your point of view, Matt, what is the unique role of local media in the city like Coquitlam? Why do you think local outlets are better at telling the stories of our neighborhoods than bigger national platforms?
Well, and I think it comes down to because the local media cares. The large organizations, even the Vancouver Sun, they might cover what's going on in the city of Vancouver, but outside of that, unless there's a controversy, they're not going to cover anything that's happening in Coquitlam.
No?
No, not at all, because they want to go where the big news is, whether it's provincial or...
Like a juicy news is.
Or city. They want the juicy news, right? But here in Coquitlam, we're not in the business of making juicy news. We don't want juicy news. We want just good governance and run a good city, right? So... we need local outlets that actually have a passion for covering what we're doing in our city and wanting to get that information out, because the struggle that we have, the big guys, they're not going to cover it. They simply don't care, right? And I get it. It's not... They're looking for hits. They're looking for large volumes of people to be able to absorb. The mission is different, maybe. It's a different mission, right? And that's fine. And we need good national news. That is also something that's incredibly important for our democracy. But we also need local news to be able to cover local issues, because the national, the big stories, they're just not looking at the medium-sized and smaller municipalities like they are the really big cities.
Because you don't make business for them.
And we don't make business. And we don't do things controversial that's going to get them a bunch of news hits.
As more local news outlets face challenges like us, like Tri-City News, what do you think cities like Coquitlam can do to support community-based journalism? I know you just answered that, before, but more explanation is maybe helpful for our viewers?
I think it's getting you content too, which is one of the big things, is actually reaching out, talking about, for example, maybe we're opening something, maybe we have something that we want to get news out on that we think that residents, and you think the residents might actually be interested in. So it's proactively letting you know that these things are happening, because I know that you're often...
And you can be involved.
Yeah, and I know media is often, from what I talk to with local journalists, they're looking for stories. They're always on the hunt for stories.
Of course.
So when we come forward to actually say, here's a story for you, journalists love it, because it's the content that you want to provide. So I think it goes back to how do we build a relationship, and that's something new for local government, because up until now, there has been robust local news. I mean, I use the example in Coquitlam, we used to have several local papers that would attend every city council meeting, that would report out on every item that happened, and it would be in your daily newspaper that you would get in the morning. All those are gone. So now we need to actually do more. They're all closed. Yep, they're all closed. They've, and it's this unfortunate reality, I think, that a lot of local papers are facing, that they're being bought up by big corporations that are then going and shutting them down because they want to cut costs.
They were waiting for federal budget maybe to get support?
I don't know if it's so much even federal budget. I think it's just that this is the trend that we've been seeing. Some of it is that, you know, with the internet, people are getting their news from different sources. The physical newspaper, the market there, I think, isn't quite what it once was anyways. You know, young people are getting their news off Facebook. They're getting it off websites. They're getting it off Twitter, which has its own dangers because often we don't know if that's vetted actually true news
or not.
So there's a danger there that and certainly I've run into this, our city's run into it, where
it's not good
misinformation gets out there, right? And that journalistic integrity piece is a huge and very important piece.
Matt, can you share an example of when local reporting helped highlights an issue or support a city council decision?
I think sometimes it's local. I always viewed local media as the voice of the people, and often when media was bringing forward a story, perhaps of maybe it's a resident that's having a struggle or a story, and then they're in the news talking about their challenge. It's a way for us to find out. It's a way for us to then know, to bring it to the fore in a way that maybe we didn't know. I always say, you know, Coquitlam is a pretty big city. It's very diverse in terms of the residents, in terms of the socioeconomics, in terms of what the different neighborhoods look like. We have very urban neighborhoods. We have very suburban neighborhoods. We have some neighborhoods that are a lot older, some are new. So having, you know, local news be able to get into those neighborhoods and talk about the issues that are there that we might not necessarily spot is something that's incredibly valuable for us to be able to make informed decisions.
As you mentioned, Matt, Coquitlam is home to many diverse communities. How can local media help give a voice to people who might not usually be heard?
Yeah, and it's a really good question because you're right that oftentimes I think we have a very big immigrant community in Coquitlam, and is local media covering that? I mean, I know you folks are doing an incredible job covering, I think, a lot of issues that are important to the Persian community in Coquitlam, which is huge. But you know, we don't get tons of local media for our Chinese community. I'm yet to see that really.
So
in other cities we see that,
city,
but here in Coquitlam we don't see that as much, right? And again, I think it's a missed opportunity where
or Korean.
We do get some Korean media actually. It's been fairly strong, but it's where having local media that also is tailored to, I think, different groups who might not just watch Global News Hour or read the Vancouver Sun is so important to making those voices heard. And I think it's also about having a diversity of thought in journalism too. You know, to have journalists who might be interested in telling the stories of someone who has an accessibility issue, or who's a renter, or who's a young person, right? Where oftentimes the stories that are being told might be skewed towards people who speak English, who might be a little bit better off. So it's important to have journalism that looks at all facets of life and is willing to cover all stories. I'll give an example where I worked with the reporter on a story for our trailer park. That's one of our trailer parks is having a lot of issues with the owner. A lot of really, I'll say, bad faith decisions by the owner that's making it really hard to live there. And thankfully we had a journalist that was really interested in covering that story and bringing it to light. And then it brought to light, I think, to the province some issues that they need to make and changes. You know, not to get too deep into it, but you have residents who might be trying to sell their trailers who aren't being allowed to and want to get out. And then there's a lack of upkeep going on in the park and an owner that maybe wants to just try and develop the site when we're not going to be developing it. So it's issues like that, right? And bringing that story and the human element to it forward was.
But that journalist developed.
And that journalist told a really good story that then, you know, and I reached out to the journalist to let them know about it. They covered it and it flagged it for the province.
Do you have any dreaming to have 24 hours community TV for Coquitlam?
Oh, it'd be amazing. It would be great, right?
It's like easy, man.
To have it, right? And it really it is so important for our democracy. And I've had people say to me, "Oh, well, you should be happy the paper's gone, right? Because they can't criticize you." I say, no, that's not. Sorry, but that is so bad for our democracy. There should be local media that is fairly critical of decisions that the city makes. That makes us a better city. It makes us a better council when we have that. And I really believe that one of our great challenges that we're going to face, not just as from the city of Coquitlam, but as a society, is the lack of transparent and true information that's getting to people, so they can make informed decisions when they go to the ballot boxes to elect their government.
Talk to other friends in Tri-City and do something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I really hope that we can at least get back one day something that covers the even if it's not just Coquitlam, but the Tri-Cities region at least.
The city has its own channels like newsletters and social media, but do you think independent local media is still essential for transparency and accountability?
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. It's important that we use social media because it is an effective tool to get to people, and using our own newsletter to get information out. But it's still just very much, it's factual information, it's updates. There's still something to be said, I think, about the editorial piece of local media, right? That engages someone like myself, right? Who will ask questions, who will put me on the spot and say, here's what you're doing, and ask hard questions. Because our own channels, they're great. I think we're doing great work for getting information out. But it's the city's own news. It's not going to ask the hard questions of the city and of its mayor and council. That's why we need local media.
I have a hard question for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, you're still the youngest councillor in the city?
Yes.
That was the hardest question.
Yes, that was an easy one to answer.
Easy answer.
Yes, we'll see what happens. Maybe after the next election that'll change, and there'll be maybe I'll have a young one I have to teach how to.
So looking ahead, how do you see Coquitlam working more closely with local media to help residents stay informed and feel more involved in their community?
I think that's where us, one of the things I'd like to work on, and we started doing it a little bit with the Tri-City News, of course, before they closed, but proactive outreach. And like I was saying earlier, it's reaching out to news, letting them know about the things that are happening in our city, so you can cover it. And it goes back to, I think, that relationship where City Hall and local media can help each other a lot, because we want to get our message out. We want residents to know about things that are happening, and you want to tell that story. So developing that relationship, and I think sharing that more, is a path that we need to start going down. And that's where I'm committed to doing some work and bringing that forward. Where it's a new area for the city to operate in. I think a lot of cities are having to do this too, but I think it's a place we need to go.
Very good. Let's talk about Persian community.
Yes.
Coquitlam has a growing Iranian community. What are your thoughts on their presence and role in the city?
Oh, I think it's amazing. I mean, it's one of the special things about Coquitlam is that so many of the people from around the world come here to make Coquitlam home, in a way that, we have diversity in other Metro Vancouver municipalities, of course, but we are one of the more diverse. And the fact that the Persian community, the Chinese community, the Korean community, the Filipino community have congregated here in a major way, it makes our city so much more vibrant. It makes our city really, I think, more of a city, in that it's not homogenous. It's not just one group of people. And that's why you get, I think, so much diversity of thought in Coquitlam, of background, of ideological views on where the city should go, and it makes our city so much more vibrant and healthy in that way. I live in the city center area, and it's great to have Persian restaurants in the area, and to be able to do that, and to be able to
I'm telling you, you don't need to go to Iran, You don't,
exactly.
Now in Coquitlam, you can purchase, any items from Persian stores, and go eat kebab.
And you hear with our Korean community, I mean, we have the K-Town area along North Road, right? Where there's such a long history of going back decades of Korean immigrants coming here and building a community. And I think it's really cool that we have that in Coquitlam.
Very good. Yeah. Same experience for us as well. So from your experience, how have Persian residents contribute socially, economically and or culturally to Coquitlam. Do you think they are well represented in civic life?
Well, I think a couple things. I'm the chair of the Multiculturalism Committee now, and it's been great to be able to have some of the Persian members on there to be able to talk about how do we highlight more Persian culture? How do we bring it to the fore? And one of the things that we've done is the Nowruz Festival, the fire festival organized by the Tri-City Iranian Cultural Society, is now one of our signature events that the city helps to fund, and it's something that the fire festival, right? And we help to fund it, supply the venue, and it is now one of those events that we consider one of our top tier events with Canada Day, with Festival du Bois, and we're incredibly proud of that fact. In terms of the civic life piece, I think there is still more for us to do to engage Persian community as well as just every immigrant community onto Coquitlam Council. For so long, up until really recently, Coquitlam Council was very much it was all white, and you didn't have immigrants, you didn't have as much diversity there. Historically, that's changed a lot now. I mean, we have a councillor of Korean descent. We have a councillor that is herself an immigrant. I think that brings such valuable background to our council to be able to make decisions. So I hope that we continue to see our council continue, and it is starting to shift this way, to look more like the community, to have people that come from more diverse backgrounds, and that can be at the council table making those decisions.
Yeah, nice. Matt, do you think anything you have to add for these discussions?
I'm just incredibly grateful that you came out here to be able to talk about these issues, because like I said, the loss of our own local paper has been a blow. So to have folks reaching out to wanting to cover issues in Coquitlam, to talk about the story here is incredibly valuable. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for sharing your insights today. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching. I'm Majid Mahichi from Skyrise Media Society. See you soon.